Hey y'all, Jonathan Daggerhart here. Today I'm going to continue working on my plugin named Osprey, which is for a WordPress query UI, and I'm going to add meta boxes to my custom post types to make the editing experience much more pleasing and easy for the administrator. So to do that, we're going to have to work with a couple of WordPress actions. One is to register meta boxes with our post type, and another is to save that metabox data. So let's take a look at that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add action for the WordPress. I'm going to add a callback to the WordPress action, add meta boxes. And there's actually a few actions we can work with here. This one is generic and will apply to all post types. You can later sort of decide which post type it actually shows your meta box on. Or we can use a more specific action for just our post type. And I'm going to do that by just adding underscore our post type name. Next, we need to give it a callback, and this function is going to mainly just register our meta boxes with WordPress. So I'm going to call it Osprey template register meta boxes. I think that's fine. We can make improvements on this later if we want. Now let's write that function. So function Osprey template register meta boxes, and this action provides the post object, and now we're ready to go. So what we need to do is we need to use the WordPress function add meta box, and this will this will register a new meta box with WordPress, and we need to give it some additional parameters such as a meta box ID, which I'll just call Osprey template row, the meta box title, which will just be template row, and a callback for rendering our box. So Osprey template render template row meta box. Yeah, that's pretty specific. I like it. Now there's some additional parameters we can put into this function, and I'm going to do so now. This would actually work on its own, but our meta box would be at the very bottom of the page. So actually, let me show you the problem. So let me write this callback, and then we'll come back up and we will edit that add meta box function. So, didn't get the right copy. Let's see. We are adding the function Osprey template render template row meta box. Great. And this action provides the post ID into the meta box that we can then work with. And in keeping with our previous examples, I'm just going to print out the word hello. Now let's take a look. There it is. Our new meta box is down there at the very bottom. So since this is very important in my custom post type, I want it to naturally display at the top and not require a user to drag it up or anything like that. And I can do that by altering this add meta box function by adding some additional parameters. The parameter I really need is the sixth one, which is, let's see, we'll do that first, which is to set the priority of that meta box to high. That'll move it up to the top, but these others are necessary in between. So this fourth parameter is the screen in which our meta box will appear, and the easiest way to deal with this is just to pass in the post type. That'll tell it to only show our meta box on this post type. Just for clarity, this action means to only run our action when dealing with this post type. And this parameter is saying only show this meta box on this post type. Now for the fifth parameter, it's asking the context of this post type, whether I want it to appear in the sidebar here on the right, or in the normal section right here in the middle, or an advanced section at the bottom. I'm just going to continue with normal. And if we save this, we should see my meta box move to the top. There we are. Great. Now we need to write this meta box. So what this is going to be is a big text area where we can more easily edit our template. So the first thing I need to do is I need to get the existing data from WordPress, and I'm going to get that by naming new variable template row and get post meta, pass in the post ID, the name of my metadata, Osprey template row, and the fact that I only want a single value. That's good. And now I need to create a text area. I'm just going to close PHP and reopen it, and I like working in HTML as HTML. So let's do text area. And I'm going to print out my template row metadata inside of that text area. So this is far from complete, but we should see that it's working and that this custom field data appears in a new text area in my meta box. Oh, what did we do? Let's see. Oh, I see. I was incorrect, actually. This meta box accepts the entire post object, not just a post ID. Sorry about that. So I need to alter this to pass the post ID from the object into this get post meta. Let's save and refresh. Looking good. All right, it could be better. I want this text box to be a nice experience. I'm going to make it a bit bigger just with some inline styles for now. So I'm going to just set the width equal to 100% and give it a height of something like 400. That should work, and I don't know that I really need to test that, but there we go. That's a better experience. Well, so I'm showing a meta box, but I'm not saving it yet. The custom field down here has built-in saving mechanisms that automatically happen. But if I were to edit this data up here and update the post, well, that didn't save because now that I have created my own meta box, I need to manage its own saving. So let's take a look at that. When dealing with forms in anything really, the only way for this data to even be sent to the server on the back end is if we give our form field a name of some sort. So I'm going to name this just simply Osprey template row. We'll just keep going with that. And that will allow this data to be submitted to the back end. To actually save the data, I'm going to have to subscribe to a new WordPress action. And that action is called Save Post. I'll provide a callback for that action. We'll call it Osprey template save metadata. Save meta boxes. Nice and simple. And here we are. Let's write this function. This is the function I was thinking of previously, the action rather, where it passes in just the post ID. Let me move this up a little bit. Now, since we're essentially dealing with a custom form of sorts here, we're going to have to use raw PHP to grab our data from the global post array and manually save it into the WordPress system. So what I want to do first is I want to prove that our field is actually being submitted. So I'm just going to do a simple sanity check var dump situation here. I'm going to dump the whole post object, exit out, and then if I save my post, I should be able to find my my data in that post. So let me refresh. Now my text area has the name. Click update and dig through this big list of stuff. Somewhere around here, there it is. Boom. Osprey template row. It's just right there in the post array. Easy enough. So I can actually say, let's see, so we'll keep this simple. We'll say if is set in the global post array the name of the field, template row, then we know we have that data and we can save it. And the way we would do that would be simply update post meta with the post ID, the name of that metadata, Osprey template row, and the value, which for now I'll just put that whole data in there. Let's save that and give it a test. Go back. I'm going to refresh for comfort. Then we're going to edit this and see if it actually updates. So delete that and delete this too. Click update. There we go. So we actually did save that post meta here during the save post action, and we're displaying it in our meta box. That is pretty good, but it's not complete. So since we're now sort of responsible for this data, we need to do the responsible thing on both saving and outputting. When you're outputting data in WordPress, we need to escape data in using the core mechanisms so that we don't end up with any errors. For example, if we put too much or the wrong kind of HTML into this text area, that could break the field completely. And we also need to sanitize the data on save so that we prevent any sort of database injection, or just to be safe. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this escape text area function provided by WordPress. There we go. And that should cover us as far as escaping data to be shown inside of the text area. A little jump there. Don't mind that. I'm going to, there we are. So as we'll see, that doesn't really change anything. If anything, it's just helping us. Now, before we save, we want to sanitize our data. So I'm going to go ahead and just make a new variable called value, and I'm going to set it equal to, let's see, what WordPress function do I want to do here? What about, well, okay, so there is a sanitize text area field, but that's not exactly what I want. I experimented with that earlier. Instead, what I'm mainly interested in is this WP Kisses thing. So WP Kisses is for preventing cross-site scripting, and there's some built-in versions of this function, and I'm just going to use the one that's used on the post content area. So we are going to sanitize this posted data. Then we're going to update the field with our value, our sanitized value. So let's save that and give it a test. Let's just go ahead and add back in our content token. Save it. And I think we're good to go. So there we did the responsible developer things of escaping our data on output and sanitizing our data on input. That looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and add another meta box. I have an idea for a meta box that would be very useful for someone using this plugin, and that is a list of tokens available to them from our token map. It's going to require a small refactor of an existing function, but I think it's worthwhile. So let's go ahead and register a new meta box, and this meta box will be the Osprey template tokens. And we're going to give it a new title, a new callback, and leave the rest of this the same. Now I'm going to write my callback function, which has the entire post object, as I learned. And now what I want to do is I want to just provide a list of possible tokens to be used. But a problem is that when developing my token system earlier, the token map is embedded within the replacement function. So what I need to do is I need to pull this map out and throw it in its own function. I'm just going to do it here. We'll clean this up later. So Osprey get token map. That sounds good. And we'll return the token map. It's a pretty simple function. And now up here I just need to replace the token map with what was previously token map with our function. So now we've got a function that returns this map to us. We can actually use this function in our meta box to provide a list of tokens. So I'm going to scroll down here to the bottom to our new meta box. And we'll get the token map. And now I just want to show a list of the keys available in that token map. It's going to be pretty simple. So I'm just going to set a new variable, tokens equal to the array keys of the token map. And then I'm going to just do a little HTML, hop back and forth between HTML and PHP to give this a decent look to it. So we'll do an unordered list, and we'll just say for each tokens as token. Let's go ahead and close our for each while we're here. And open it while we're there. We're going to have a new list item that merely echoes out the token. There we go. So let's see if we got a new helpful meta box. Template tokens. There we are. So this could be improved a bit. For example, let's go ahead and make it in the same pattern that we expect people to use. So we open a token with braces and a space, and we close it with a space and close braces. There we are. Pretty good. So we can improve this even further later, but for now I believe that's a solid improvement for the template post type. Great. So now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and look at our query post type and do the same thing. I want to move our custom fields into meta box, and I want to provide another meta box that just helps the administrator out a bit. So let's go back to, let's just keep going where we are. So I'm going to add action, add meta boxes, and my post type name, which is Osprey query. Provide a callback that we'll call Osprey query, I think register meta boxes. I believe that's the same sort of pattern I used before. Give me some space. There we go. We need to write this function. And that function accepts the entire post object, or expects the entire post object. And now we need to actually use the add meta box function to register the meta box with the post type. So first is the ID, Osprey query. This first meta box is going to be for the both of these custom fields, argument string and template ID. So I'm going to name this something like Osprey query settings, maybe. That'll work for now. Let's give it a title. Get out of here, PHP Storm. Give it a title. We'll call query settings. And we need to give it a callback. Osprey query settings metabox. Let's do render settings metabox. And just so that I skip the hassle of moving it to the top later, let's go ahead and fill in the additional parameters required to make our metabox appear at the top. There we are. Now we need to write this function, our callback, to display the contents of the metabox. This also accepts the entire post object. And we're going to stop here for a nice test. Back over to the page and refresh, and we should see our new metabox at the top with hello. Great. Looking good. All right. And so in this case, we're dealing with two different pieces of data that I'm just going to go ahead and get. We're going to call it the query args string is equal to get post meta, the post ID, our meta value key. Let's see, Osprey query arg string seems simple enough, and the fact that we only want a single value. And additionally, let's just go ahead and get our template ID. Same deal here, post ID, our metadata name, Osprey query template ID, single value true. And now we have our data to work with, and we just need to create our fields. So the query arg string is pretty simple. That's just going to be an input field where type is equal to text. And it's going to have a name where we continue to use our metadata key as the name for the field. Osprey query args string. And it has a value that we will escape and output with PHP. So open PHP, print escape attribute query arg string. So this is running off the page a little bit here. Let's break this up a little bit for visibility. There we go. That looks all right. And let's open PHP back up. So now we should have our query args metadata inside of an input in this metabox. Looking good. I'm going to go ahead and add some more inline styles. Styling is a whole nother level to this that we'll have to get to later. So we'll just keep it in line for now. That should make it bigger. And additionally, since we're adding more than one field to this metabox, I want to provide labels. So let's open up a label and let's echo out the label for this field, which will be query args string. Amazing. That's all right. Now let's take a refresh over here while I figure out what's next. Okay, good. And next what we want to do is provide this template ID as a custom field. But I want this to be a little bit better. It's not ideal that a user has to go understand internal mechanisms of WordPress, that the post ID is in the URL, etc., to type this in manually. Instead, I want to provide a list that the user can select from. So I'm going to make a new variable that I call all templates, and we're just going to get posts and pass in an array of arguments so that we can get the post type we need. Post type is equal to, let's break this up a little bit. post type is our Osprey template. And post per page is all of them. So I believe that's a -1. We'll be able to test this out in just a moment. Now I want to, back to HTML, I want to provide a label and a select box where the user can just select from a list of templates. Let's go ahead and label this. Many rooms for improvement here, but for now, I'm just going to keep it simple as an example for meta boxes. Template row is really what we're selecting here. Our template, yeah, just template actually. And then I'm going to make a new select box that will have a name. And that name will be equal to the metadata we're saving, Osprey query template ID. Looking good. And I'm going to make a little default option here that is just a little, just kind of a little prompt. And after that, we're going to loop through all of our templates and add them to a list. So let's just do that. For each all templates as template, we're going to add a new option to this select. And our template value here is a post object. So now we need to start setting the value for these options. Let's set the value to this one equal to the template ID as a post object. Let's go ahead and escape attributes there. And inside what is shown to the user, let's print out the post title. So we'll just escape attributes again. And we're running off the edge of the screen. But I'll clean this up in just a moment. Yeah, we'll just do it like this. It's not the best, not the worst formatting here. I don't know, it actually might be the worst. But that should give us a select box where we can choose from a list of all the templates. So let's give that a shot. Let's refresh. Yeah, look at that, our templates. So that if we go add a new template, we'll call this test template 2. And just use the title token again, just for testing. Now if we go back and edit, we should see our select box offers us both of those template options. Yeah, looking good. That is alright. So there's definitely some improvements in styles that could happen here, but more importantly at the moment, we need to now save our metadata. Well, actually, there's something wrong here. If you notice, my template ID has a value, but the select box isn't showing me that. What I need to do is use a WordPress function to set whatever the current option, whatever the currently selected option is, to set an attribute that, whereas HTML attribute, so selected equals selected. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw that right in here. Actually, let me clean this up a little bit. I don't like the way that looks. Yeah, fine for now. Alright, so we're just going to say OpenPHP, and the name of that function is selected, and you pass in two values to test against each other. So our template ID that was saved, as well as we're going to compare that to the current loop's template ID. So now that if I refresh the page, we should see that the template that's already has a value saved should be selected in our select box. Well, this is a Firefox thing. Let me refresh the right way. There we go. So now we're showing the saved data correctly. Now what we need to do is we need to save the data as submitted from our custom meta box. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and add another action where we subscribe to the save post action with a new callback. And this callback will be Osprey query. What did I call the other one? Let's stick with a pattern. Save meta boxes. Fair. Save meta boxes. I just need to write that function. And again, I'm only going to receive the post ID into this action. And we need to do the same things we did in our other metabox saving. We need to look for it in the global post array. We need to look for our data in the global post array. We need to sanitize it, and we need to update the post meta. So let's just do them one at a time to keep it simple. So if this exists, Osprey query arg string is in the global post array, then let's sanitize it, and that is a that's just a simple text field. So we'll say value is equal to sanitized text field, and update post meta. Passing in the post ID, the metadata key, Osprey query arg string, and our new value. That should work. We'll test that out in a second, but let's go ahead and write the second one as well. So additionally, if it's set, our Osprey query template ID, let's sanitize this just using using a function called intval. So we're expecting an integer, and so if we convert whatever data is passed into an integer, then that should be safe. Now let's update post meta with our metadata key. And the new value. Alright, so this should work. We should be able to alter and change and save both of these fields. So let's just change post per page to 10, and let's select the second template. Alright, that looks right, and we can double check down here in our custom fields while we still have it open, and that data has been saved. That's pretty good. So we have a working meta box where we can definitely make it look a lot better, but where we can control and provide a better experience to the administrator. Now, I want to do one more meta box for the query, and that'll wrap up this video. So I'm going to go up here, and I want to add a meta box where we can get a preview of the query we're working on. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it down here. The new ID will be Osprey query preview. The title will also reflect the name. And we're going to render the preview meta box. Let me just copy that, and we'll write that meta box down at the bottom. New function, Osprey query render preview meta box. It has the post parameter. And now we run into another problem as similar with our tokens. The only function we have at the moment that outputs the query is at the very top. It's our shortcode function. which realistically is doing a little too much work. The shortcode function doesn't need to own this whole process. It just needs to be able to validate the attributes passed in and execute a query and return the output. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this whole chunk of code here to a new function and change some things around to make it work. So I'm going to write this new function, and we called the shortcode Osprey render query shortcode. So we'll just call this Osprey render query. And it's going to accept a parameter that we will call the query ID. Let me paste this in here. Alright, so we need to make some adjustments. No longer is the attributes query available, but we are expecting a query ID, so let me replace these. No longer do we have our output string started. Let's start an empty output string. That looks good. And at the very end, we want to return the output. Great. So all we should need to do now is, back in our shortcode, let's just set the output equal to Osprey render query, and we're going to pass in the attributes query ID, which is just called query. Alright, so our shortcode should still work, but now we've got this more generic function that we can use in our new preview meta box. Let's test this out. I'm going to go back to our page where we're looking at the shortcode and refresh it. Yeah, so we have 10 posts now that are only showing the post title, as we told it to do in this new template. So let's keep moving on and use our new function in our preview meta box. Back down to the bottom. We're just going to print out Osprey query, Osprey render query. We're going to pass in this query's ID, and we should have a working preview of the query we're currently working on. Let's take a look. Hey, all right. So that's pretty good. We've got meta boxes that are helping quite a bit. We've got our settings up here for the query. We've got a preview so that we don't have to keep hopping back and forth. We currently do have to update for the preview to work or refresh, but that can be improved later. And our templates, we have a better experience for the editor and a helpful additional meta box. So I'd say that we have completed meta boxes for now. There's many improvements we can make, but for now I'd say this is solid. In the next video, I'm going to refactor all of this code into being a much more reasonably organized plugin. But for now, thanks.